Where is it recording?
I'm here.
Okay. Did you all get a notice saying I'm recording it?
It says recording.
Okay, good. I thought so. Oh, there it is. Okay, it just popped up here. Okay.
I'll just give us another minute, like 2 more minutes to see who shows up, and then we'll get started.
Nancy, I saw you in the front page of my newspaper.
Wasn't that nice that they did that? It was a very kind thing. Appreciated it.
Congratulations. That was great. Big story, too.
Yeah. And me with my mask, Dave and I with our mask at the golf tournament. That's they came out to take pictures of our golf tournament about a month and a half ago or so. So I guess those were the pictures that they had. So it was kind of cool.
Actually works, but you're totally destroyed. I understand that. You're tearing it up.
Okay, well, thank you all for being here. It is nominating season, and we're hoping to receive many more nominations in the next week. And thankful for all of you to be here to help us explain what session looks like these days, and maybe give some encouragement to some people that might be thinking about self-nominating or just have questions in general about what it's like to be an elder on Trinity session. So we will go ahead and get started with I have some questions to ask, and if you have an answer, you have something you want to say, you can raise your hand and I'll call on you. And so just to try to avoid people talking over each other, that will help out. So my first question is, how have you been able to bring your energy, intelligence, imagination, and love to the role of elder at Trinity? Mary Lou?
So I'll start because I think this is the only question that I can actually address of the three. And that's my favorite vow that we take among all of them. And so I think when we think about that, we want to bring our best self and our whole self to the work of the session. And so we commit to spending the time and the energy that is necessary to prepare ourselves for each meeting, for each issue that's coming up. We are open to looking outside the box, to use our imagination to find exciting ways to maybe look at things from a different perspective. And certainly in this day and age, we're being called to reimagine boldly as we think about how to do church in the midst of a pandemic. And then love. And I think by being on the session, you become aware of the wholeness of the congregation. You're privileged to know sometimes those people who are in need of extra TLC, and you can reach out to them in ways that you may not have thought of before. That builds relationships that are often quite rewarding. So I think in return for all of that, you are challenged, you're stretched, but you also learn and grow in ways that are deeply meaningful. So that for me is what coming with your energy, intelligence, imagination, and love to the work of the session might mean.
Thank you. Does anybody else have anything? Linda?
Well, just a quickie that to me, it's a wonderful, wonderful benefit to listen to a discussion from, so many different people from different walks of life in the session. And it opens me up, it challenges me, it makes me think about different possibilities. And to me, that is critical. And one of the things that has been a really good benefit to me is to see how the session, elders on session, will work through a topic that we're discussing. And we've all read and done a little bit of homework prior to, but we'll listen to each other and work through and come to a consensus. Being clerk of session, I can only remember a handful of times when we've actually taken a vote on something. We listen and we work ourselves through to a consensus that everybody is happy with.
Nancy?
I often have felt when I've been on the session that I don't necessarily feel like I'm bringing my energy when I start, but I have found it energizing to be part of the session. And I know there have been a few times when I've thought about coming on the session and felt God's call to come on the session that I've sort of thought, do I have time? Do I have the energy? And yet being on the session, then the connection to the church, the growth that I have felt through getting to know other people who are on the session and hearing their thoughts and learning from them, as well as the deeper spiritual connection to the church that I've often gotten from being on the session, has then energized me and given me the ability to do things that I wasn't sure I could do. And I think it's God and the community pulling us together and bringing our better selves out in us, working as a group. And I think one of the really strong parts of being on Trinity session for me has been that willingness to really spend a lot of time in discernment and prayer together, and not just to make decisions based on what we've decided before, but to really think through what is God saying to the church today.
All right. Well, thank you for those reflections and reminders that being on session is a time of challenge and growth, time for deeper communications and connections with the church and the congregation, and the experience can be very energizing. So those were great reminders and appreciate that. So with the way things are in the world right now, what can you tell me about session meetings? What do current session meetings look like under the restrictions that we're operating under? And in what ways is serving on the session different now than it was in other years? Yogi?
I'll start, but I want to say this is my first year, so the few meetings that I was able to attend in the beginning, I thought this was kind of a business arrangement, keeping the church running. And it was a conversation I had with Linda preceding becoming an elder, that she mentioned the spiritual side. And I really felt that in the meetings that we had in person, and it continues with Zoom. All of us are part of other organizations as well as this, and every organization is doing some kind of collaborative meeting like this, whether it's Meet Me or whatever, Cisco, Zoom. This kind of interaction, this kind of meeting is very convenient. Everybody speaks to the fact that it was fun before. It was a lot of fun before. There was better interaction because you were one-on-one. And I agree with that. And I long to get back to in-person meetings. You can't argue the point that this is very convenient. So as we go into the future, I think there should be some combination of this, that when we do have occasional meetings in person, but the convenience of this is nice. And so far, in the few months, well, gee, I guess it's been almost a year. In the time that I've been here, I've really enjoyed this, and I think it's pretty cool. Being a part of making the church run is okay.
And Becca?
I agree with Yogi. It's very convenient, but I do miss a little bit of the one-on-one and a little bit of the socialization that we got to do maybe before and after the meetings. I think Zoom is great because we do have the video, but sometimes I'm stuck on the phone and I'm afraid Bill's on the phone and he doesn't see like the body language that we all can see when we're like, when I am in, participate in the after church. So a lot of times I have to go on the phone because I don't have the best internet connection. So that's, I feel like I miss a lot of the communications that occur that aren't just verbal. Because I think like 99% of communication is supposed to be nonverbal. But that's one of the things I thought about. But I do love that we can turn on the computer. We don't have to drive, and we don't have to think about all the emissions and the gas and, you know, the impact on the environment of just driving around. So I think it's great. Stephanie keeps us moving through the meetings real well. I really appreciate how organized she is. Sometimes with this, I was saying with my limitations with the internet, I don't get the whole statement that somebody may have made, and it's hard to get clarification. I just kind of have to figure out what's going on. But really, I think it's wonderful that we have Zoom. I'm so grateful. And I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Mary Lou had said before. I'm a pretty new member to the church, and I think it's been an honor. It's been so wonderful to be part of session, to get to know people, and to feel comfortable interacting in all the different areas that are available for us to work in. You know, when I kind of made some notes about how I have interacted on session, and I just kind of thought about the seasonal teams and how that was real new when I started, and we were all exploring that new way of doing worship and working together. I think it's all just been a wonderful experience, and I would really encourage other people to try it if they haven't. If they are thinking about being on session, I just think that to do some good praying and maybe think real hard about how the good things that can happen for yourself. So that's all I had to say. I'm going to mute myself now.
Abby, this
Yeah.
is Bill.
Yes, Bill.
Just to add a summary of things that Becca was saying. I find that the meetings are just as efficient and, you know, sufficiently efficient to conduct the business that's on the agenda. And the thing that I think is the detriment is that we don't have as much personal interaction as we do in the live, you know, in-person meetings. So I like the in-person meetings better, in spite of the fact that you have to drive and pollute the air and stuff like that. But anyway, that's all I want to say on that question.
Well, thank you. Any last remarks? So yeah, that was a good summary. Session meetings are happening on Zoom right now. And in addition to the meetings, I will point out that the actual commitment in terms of time is a lot less, because we're not doing the house steward duties every month and some of the things that actually the session is required to do at the church house itself. So if you're thinking about the time commitment, it is significantly different under these conditions for now. So, and yeah, so thanks for pointing out that our meetings are more than just business. There's a spiritual component to our gatherings, and the convenience and usability of Zoom is very appreciated. So thanks for that great summary. All right, last question. How has your service changed your perspective of the church in the world?
Excuse
This is
me.
Bill again. If nobody else wants to speak, I have 2 comments.
Sure, go ahead, Bill.
Okay, I think through being on session, I have a much broader understanding of what the Presbyterian Church is all about, not just this congregation, but the broader national church, and that is very welcome. And the other thing is, given what's happened in the last year or so, I think the way the session is reacting to sort of current events politically and so on, in part based upon COVID, is that it is causing me to dig deeper into my understanding of what we need to do to have racial justice, and I think that's very important. That's all.
Great, thank you.
You can all see that Frances is trying to connect. She's struggling with audio on her side, but I don't see her in her picture either, her video.
Nancy, did you have a response to the question?
Yes, took me a minute to unmute for some reason.
Okay.
I think that what Bill was saying about broadening my perspective on the church is really an important part of what I've gotten out of and what I've grown through with the session. I was raised in the Presbyterian Church, and I knew some of the ins and outs of how the church worked, but then spent a little time in the Church of the Brethren and kind of got used to how it was working, and wasn't quite sure when I came back to the Presbyterian Church how the whole system worked, broader church perspective. And I grew up in a church that was mission oriented, but mission oriented for its specific congregation and not really reaching out into presbytery work or synod work or general assembly work. And so being part of Trinity, where there's a lot of that emphasis on the connectionalism of the church and the fact that we are a congregation that is connected to such a broader church, and that sort of thing has been very important to me. And also, I think that the training that we go through, reading the doctrine of the church and making sure that we have really studied what sorry, I have a cat climbing on my lap, what we consider the essential functions of the church, or essential tenets of the church. Sorry, the other is a work-related thing. The tenets of the church has been really important to know what that means, and I've learned a lot theologically as well as just how the church works, connected to the broader mission of the church. So,
Thank you. Welcome, Frances. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Do we have any other thoughts on the broader perspective that we get from serving on session?
Maybe just the reminder that by me being a member of the session, you also are eligible and in fact obligated to participate in the larger courts of the church, such as the presbytery, the synod, and the general assembly. So those are opportunities that you have as an elder that you don't have otherwise. And having been a part of each one of those, I can say that each one brings its own perspective that can be quite rewarding as well as challenging, to say the least.
I think we also need to have nominations for Cat Elder of the Month. We've had 3 nominations so far. People, cats who are bombing the meeting.
We have several that would be in the running for that.
I have another one right here who's thinking about bombing it.
Oh, you're stacking the deck there then.
She's glaring at me like, how come he's getting in those?
So just in closing, as you're thinking about people that you might be nominating, or as you're considering self-nominating, what can you give as information on what led you to accept your role as elder? When you were called or you felt your sense of calling, what do you remember about actually leading you to accepting the call?
Well, I think for me, I had only been at Trinity, I think, for a couple of years when I first served on session. And it was, again, being relatively new to the Presbyterian Church. And it was a matter of learning more about how the Presbyterian Church operated, and then how we as a Trinity itself, how we fit into that, and how we were, learning more ourselves about how we could become part of that larger church.
I would also like to add that my mother and Andy's mother were the first women elders in their churches. And so that's in my time. And so women have not been elders for really that long, and how important it is for women to step forward and be heard and accept the call.
I would also like to say that too, that there has been sort of a sense, I know when I was growing up, the elders were all older white men. And I know when I got nominated, my sister, I was like 29 or so, and my sister was going, you can't possibly be an elder, teasing me. She was teasing me, but it did, that image of who can be an elder has really expanded. And I think that sometimes people think, I know when I was on the nominating committee, I would have people say, well, I'm not old enough, or I don't have enough experience, or I don't know how the church works enough, and various kinds of things. And I think that being part of the session, as we've said here, is what helps you to really grow into some of those roles and to learn the things that you need to know to be an elder. It's kind of waiting until you're ready that you know all that you need to know about being an elder is way too late. You really can, you can grow into the role. You can, whatever age, whatever political persuasion, or gender, any of those other things, growing into being an elder, or being able to accept that role and knowing that the church is behind you. And one of the other things that I like too is the fact that we do have the nominating system where other people within the congregation can call out each other's gifts, and to say that I see your gifts as an elder. I could see you stepping up into this role, and that's very affirming as well. I'm glad that we do it that way.
Well, I don't know if I'm repeating what somebody else has said, since I was just able to get on about 5 minutes ago, so forgive me if I am, but I found that one of the things that encouraged me to be an elder has also proven to be true. And that was that I thought that my appreciation and focus in the church would improve, and they have. When you're an elder, you see the backstory of the church, and you see what needs are, how those needs come to be, and how they're met. Sorry?
You're welcome.
Oh, okay. So that has been the case. And then I felt that the focus has been there too, that whether I'm doing my own private things, if I'm doing Bible study or reading, or whether I'm more actively involved in ministry, I find that at all times, in addition to whatever other hat I might be wearing, I'm wearing that elder hat. So it just makes me much more aware. So I'm thankful for that.
Well, thank you all very much for participating and serving the nominating committee in helping us put this video together. We are accepting nominations through the end of this coming week and hope to hear from a lot of people. And if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to an active session member, myself as the chair of the nominating committee, or anybody that you know who has served before. And we welcome all nominations and inquiries to take on this exciting role for a session for the next 3 years. So thank you very much again for being here. And it's time for us to actually head on to the session meeting that starts at 4. So I hope everybody has a good week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you, Yogi.
Thank you.
Thank you.